Hello and welcome. The Union Cabinet has cleared the real estate regulatory bill, though a somewhat watered down version of the initial bill proposed in 2013. Next, it will be tabled in the Parliament. The bill could not have come at a better time, is what we are saying. There's a complete trust deficit today amongst home buyers, and the industry is already paying a hefty price with rapidly falling sales. On today's special show, we will examine the provisions of the bill to seek answers to the burning question: does the bill protect lakhs of home buyers across the country who face the brunt of project delays, one-sided agreements and shoddy product delivery? To answer that, I have with me Pankaj Bajaj, MD Eldeco Infrastructure and Properties, Vineet Relia, Managing Director of Sare Homes, Sudipta Kumar Pal, Advocate Supreme Court, Anshuman Magazine, CMD, CBRE South Asia. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining me. Let's just take a quick look at some of the key provisions which have been cleared. First of all, has the bill widened the compliance net? Yes, it has. Along with residential commercial real estate projects will also be covered, and all projects will have to be registered with the regulator within 3 months, including size of just 1,000 square feet and 3 apartments. So even small developers cannot advertise launch project without registration, and non-compliance will attract fines, and misinformation attract fines of 5% of the project cost. So we will keep showing you all the other provisions, but I think the first burning question is the buyer adequately protected? Sudipta, you've been on the real estate shows several times. We've discussed how dire the situation is, especially in some of the key markets of NCR, where project delays have crossed actually 50 months. What do you think?
I think it's come little late. It's good for us, and it will certainly, any law that comes in, all the stakeholders get to have a say on this. I think the regulator, the implementing agency, if they really look at it objectively and make use of the law, I think it's all the better. I think the real estate sector will take a better out of this.
All right, so it will become more transparent, hopefully. Anshuman Magazine, what's your reaction? We've been hearing voices since morning. Developers' point of view is that it's somewhat draconian. There could be criminal proceedings against developers who actually delay their projects. Okay, we've lost Anshuman, we'll get back to him, but is this bill draconian, or do you think it will protect the buyers? Draconian for the developers, Pankaj, of course.
Yes, if you do commit willful defaults, the developers will face the full force of the law. But where the developers are apprehensive about this bill is that the term willful default has not been adequately defined. So what we fear is that we will be at the mercy of discretionary powers of the authority who will be defining what willful default is.
Why do you call it discretionary? He's a
because
regulator,
it's not
he's
defined.
Supposed to examine.
But it's not defined.
Okay.
So, and another thing, it says that you cannot launch a project unless you register a project with the developer, which is a very good thing, and it does protect the customers, to answer your second question, from the menace of pre-launches. Developer launching projects without having title of the land, without getting all the requisite approvals. But again, what is the mechanism for that registration? It says it's going to be online, it's going to be a deemed registration within 15 days, but subsequently the regulator is going to examine your documents and has the power to revoke that registration. It is not defined on what grounds. If it has been deemed...
So these things will get cleared. But overall, on the provisions, Anshuman Magazine, we have him with us. Anshuman, look at some of the key provisions. One, that you will be penalized if you do not declare everything, the promoter's background, the approvals, etc., and register your project with the regulator. It goes on to actually say that the one-sided agreements, especially where the buyer had to pay 18% interest to the developer for a delayed payment, but the developer himself got away with 5 rupees per square foot, which actually works out to less than 3% in a mid-size home. Do you think some of these big changes are just something which were waiting to happen to protect the home buyer in India?
See, first of all, you asked me in an earlier question that what do I feel of it. I think this is good that the regulator bill has come in, because this will give confidence to investors in the long term. This will attract more investment in the sector, both keeping the consumer in place, but also importantly institutional investors which will come in, both domestic and foreign. Okay. But leaving that aside, so it is good, but at the same time, along with the regulator bill, the government also has to take certain accountability it will, one of the reasons why, if you look at any sector in India, be it telecom, be it cars, where the cost has gone down, services improved, quality is improved, is because of competition. If we make development business more difficult to enter, and part of it is part of the regulatory bill where some of the laws I think are still draconian, like you mentioned, then we will not get more people coming into the market, doing development, more professionals, better people, which will increase competition, which will reduce prices, improve quality, etc. in the long term. So there are certain provisions which need to improve.
We thought that the industry was evolving. There were, I don't want to name any companies here, but there is a company in NCR, young bunch of architects, professionals who launched several projects on the promise of transparency, and we know what's happening to many of those projects of that company. The developers have split and the projects are getting inordinately delayed. So I'm not so sure. There's been enough time, Vineet Relia, for the industry to clean up its act by itself and self-regulate. There are only a handful of developers who we can really call as honest, transparent and following the rules and actually protecting or thinking for the buyer. There's a word in Hindi which is called fitrat and niyat. Somehow the industry hasn't convinced the buyer that its niyat is right, intention is right.
So I think, the way you put it, the rules of the game are defined now, right? But what we are worried about is there are certain provisions about how is going to be executed on the ground.
Okay.
If you again get us back to a situation that we have to go and plead to a individual's judgment, then you will be creating more issues. Otherwise, yes, like Pankaj put it, if there is a willful default and if somebody has a wrong intention, the consumers are protected. More importantly, the financial institutions are going to be protected. So a lot of new investment will come in, which I think is going to, the growth will happen many times now.
All right. So there is a pro and a con to every argument, and of course we've heard the developers say that there will be another layer of approval added. Already they face 50 plus approvals, and we all know that those take just a lot of time. In fact, there is absolute no surety of how long approvals could take. They could take 3 months to 6 months to 12 months, and that's a big bane of contention, which of course the bill has just not taken care of. But consider this, why are we coming back to the buyer's problem? The average delay in delivering projects across the National Capital Region and Mumbai metropolitan region between 2011 and 14, and these have been good 4 years for the developers to have actually bucked up their act, has been 30 months and 20 months respectively. Mind you, these are averages and actually mellow the nasty buyer experience by months in some cases. In MMR, there are 2.7 lakh units which have been substantially delayed and are under construction. In NCR, the number is 3.8 lakhs. And the all India total adds up to 10 lakhs. So something's definitely wrong. How much of it is willful? How much of it is because of approval delays? There is no number to it. But hear out this buyer. We've got Amit Chauhan. He's been battling with one of the new developers who came with a promise of actually delivering in time, and all the projects are stuck. Amit, you have a question for the panel here. And what are your own concerns or positive reactions to the bill?
Manisha, first of all, the buyers welcome some progress in this regard, but I think builder lobby has its way. I have two questions to the expert on this panel. Number one is, do you think maintaining only 50% in escrow account is the solution? We buyers are very disappointed with this. Almost all builders have a habit of diverting money to other businesses. While we suffer endless delay, they become land sharks. I give you one example. Recently, if you talk about my builder only, they are running 7 projects currently. All of them are delayed. Now this builder changes his name and buy land worth 2,300 crore rupees. So all the money that was collected from our projects is diverted.
Okay.
Question is, who would stop this nuisance?
All right. All right,
right.
Okay, so we got the question. So, Dipta, that is the big question here. We are saying, all right, some of the new developers who are coming, they're young, they're professional, they will not work in the same manner. But a lot of that has got actually shattered in the last few months. You heard of Amit, we don't want to name any companies here, but there has been a case of some sort of willful default at that end. The escrow money, or the money which has to be put in escrow account, in the initial bill proposed was 70%. That has got diluted to 50%. Do you think it's got diluted too much?
See, we'll have to, it's very difficult to come out with a figure whether 70 is good enough or 50. I think...
Will it prevent developers from now diverting funds from the current project which they're supposed to build with the buyer's money to other land acquisition businesses?
I think he has the right to take away some amount of money, that's for sure.
So
but the
that's
thing
all
is,
right.
no,
Okay.
I look at it slightly differently. The whole bill was actually hijacked, or a lot of, you can say, it stopped on this issue. The very fact that it has subliminally told people is that the builders wants to take away their money beforehand. If a builder is not left with any financial interest in the project, if he is not left with any money left in the business, he is going to put these projects into trouble.
Okay.
So,
Pankaj, there's a point here. The 50%, 70%, I do know that in the housing ministry, developers just wore down the officials on this point. They said, look, we will not accept 70%, and everybody is smiling. So we do know we've got a senior correspondent following the housing ministry. Why not 50%? Only 50% of the buyer's money, he's paying for a full product. Only 50% of his money is asked to be kept in the escrow account. 50%, you still can take it out and pay for the land, etc. In fact, I believe that 70% was the right number, because now with 50%, developers don't have any skin in the game left.
First up, let me refute the contention that we were against the escrow mechanism.
You were not against the escrow
we are
mechanism.
totally for
you
it.
Wanted to dilute the percentage.
See, what is happening is 50% is an average percentage across projects, across locations. If you are doing a development in South Mumbai, now land is going to constitute 80% of the cost there, and the construction is going to be another 10%, and the balance 10% would be the overheads or the profits or whatever. So in such cases, why 50%? The builder has already invested 80%. In other cases, let us say a project is nearing completion and you're going to buy in a building which is going to be given possession of in the next 6 months. Why 50%? He's already invested in the land. And
I buy that argument.
So 50% is an average across the board.
Pankaj, in India,
Yes.
and that's the beauty of this Indian market, or the bane of this Indian real estate market. It is the only market where the buyer starts buying on paper.
That's
Isn't
not true.
it?
It happens across the world. It happens in Dubai. It happens everywhere.
Very few
Off-plan
markets.
sales.
In most markets, in Singapore to US, you actually buy when the product is ready. Am I wrong about that, Junaid?
No, I think, like, for example, you mentioned Dubai. Dubai, what happens is earlier you had pre-launches. Now the
I didn't
regulator
mention
is in.
Dubai, he
Okay,
did.
sorry. So he mentioned Dubai. Now they have a regulator in place. So before you launch, what you have to do is you have to award the contract. You have to submit a bank guarantee. So it's like once you had your skin in the game, then you're allowed to launch. But they're all off-plan sales.
30%.
It's only China. Yeah, it's only mainly China which practices that model of when the house is built, then the sales start.